Hey darlings, it's Kira Joel, author and narrator, and today I'm going to talk about ineffective coping mechanisms, especially within conflict. So I have an effective coping mechanism that I use that's basically like a dog rolling onto its back and peeing on itself. So this is something that I do. I don't literally pee on myself, but I make myself really small, really kind of pathetic looking, really just sad, in this attempt during conflict, especially, to appear extremely non-threatening. Because if I'm like, oh my gosh, I made someone upset, oh no, I'm gonna like just try to be as, just like I said, non-threatening and as pathetic as possible. And luckily this is a thing that I've done way less, because eventually, I don't know if it's through therapy or what, I found out that, like I said, not very effective, not a great way to do things. Generally, I will think of all the meanest things about myself to get to that place. And that's not great for me or for the other person. And I was thinking about this more. My chair is very loud, sorry. I was thinking about this more today because, like I said, I don't do it often anymore. But this morning, just a storm of stuff going on. I don't know what, but I way did it, and it just made me think, like, I'm glad I don't do this very much anymore, and what could I have done differently, and what can I share with the world about it in case you do the rolling over and peeing on yourself, figuratively. Hopefully not literally. I mean, if you do, no shame. It's all good. So yeah, what happened is just this morning, tensions were high, apparently. Like, my love was feeling all, feelings, and I was feeling feelings, and just all this explosion of stuff. And so I went to like the darkest place, and I was like, I'm crap, and everybody leaves in one way or another. And so I was just like crying on the floor because feelings. And he had to go to work, and he was just like, doesn't like when I'm crying. Like, I have found I'm going to generalize, most men do not seem to enjoy making female partners cry, or seeing them cry, or feeling like maybe they have done something to contribute to those partners crying. So yeah, that was fun. That was a good time. And then eventually he called and we talked and things got better. But as I was just crying at home and thinking about how I was like an awful person, I was like, what could I have done differently? And also, what does this coping mechanism do for me? So one of the things I learned from a book I narrated, NLP at Work, The Difference That Makes the Difference, 4th edition. I don't sing in the book, so I don't know why I just did that. The author, Sue Knight, talks about being whole and how we can have these different parts of ourselves that are fighting. And ever since I've been thinking about that, it's made me want to be kinder to the parts of myself that I'm not particularly fond of. So this coping mechanism, not one that's great, but instead of instead of being really, really mean to myself and being like, what is wrong with you? Like, that's not who you are. Like, how could you do that? I try to figure out, what is this trying to do? Because I realized that basically if I am super mean to myself and I'm just crying and I'm just pathetic, there's that part of me wants somebody to be like, I don't need to be mad at you. Like, you're just this tiny, scared puppy peeing on itself. Like, it's okay. So it's this way to be like, I'm not a threat. Like, I'm very, very small, and there's no need to be like upset with me. And I realized that this is a thing I want to do with like customers and clients in my like other business. And I don't go to that extreme because I don't want them to think I'm crazy. I will show the craziness to my love. I'm not going to show it to a client. But the other day I had a client that wasn't even mad. They were just like, hey, like maybe we should communicate more about what I'm looking for. But in my head, I'm like, oh no, I suck. I'm an awful person. I didn't give her what she wanted. Oh no. And I had to like find a way to very professionally be like, oh, hey, I'm going to give you some free, like a free service, and I'm going to do this differently next time. And thank you for your input. Like I luckily, like I said, with clients, I don't want them to know I'm crazy. But that's still that impulse to be like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, let me give you $100. I'm so terrible. Like, don't hate me. So that's what that is trying to do. It is trying to get a person to not be upset. Usually that doesn't, like I said, doesn't seem to work necessarily with men. I feel like maybe with women it would work better, and I'm sorry for generalizing genders. But like I did notice a friend did this to me a couple of times where like I was upset with them and then they were just like, oh, I'm shit, like I'm an awful person. And I'm just like, whoa, no. And my first instinct is like, oh no, you're like amazing and I love you. And so I feel like maybe it would work better with, not that I want to do it. So yeah, like I said, I acknowledged what this ineffective coping mechanism wants, and I thanked it, which sounds hippie and woo-woo and weird, but I thanked it. I was like, thanks for trying to take care of me. Thanks for trying to do good for me. How can we do this differently next time? What might be a more effective way to get what we want? And so I took what happened this morning with my love and thought about it in a different way. Like I thought about how I could have reacted differently, and I realized I could have kept my calm, I could have kept my cool, and I could have been like, okay, I did something and he got really upset, but that's most likely something going on with him. Maybe he was like, you know, like 0.05% like irritated with me, but the rest was just whatever stuff was going on with him. So it wasn't anything to do with me. And so if I just had kept my cool and had just given him space and just been like, oh, dude's going through some stuff, and just went upstairs or whatever, probably would have been a very different morning. Or if I even stood up for myself, like it might have made him pissy, but if I was just like, dude, like there's no need to react that way. Just kept it calm, kept it cool. Because it's a thing, I think it's really interesting, is some people like it when you call them on their stuff, which blows my mind because I am incredibly non-confrontational. But I've heard that from multiple people that like, oh yeah, I love my wife, she calls me on my shit. Sorry for the language. And so I was like, yeah, there's different ways I could have gone about this, and I didn't need to go to the darkest places of myself. And I don't need to roll on my back and pee on myself. So if that is a coping mechanism that you have, maybe take a moment and be like, okay, what does this do for me? And what could I do instead? What might be something that is going to be more efficient and might get me to have happier relationships with other people? And maybe you have something completely opposite. Maybe you're very, very confrontational. Maybe you're very in people's faces. I've seen partners that when they're upset with themselves, they will lash out at other people and they will blame the other person. So let's say they have this goal or there's this thing they really want to do, but they're just finding it really difficult and they're really upset with themselves and they're feeling like a failure. So then they will lash out at you and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, or not necessarily you, but they'll lash out at someone and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing this and this, you're keeping me from doing my dream. Not particularly an effective coping mechanism, but what does it do for them? It helps redirect that blame. It helps take some of that pain off of themselves. It helps them feel like, hey, I'm not a failure, it's that person's fault. But like I said, not particularly effective because it's not going to get you to your dream. You have to take that responsibility on yourself and be like, oh, it's my fault, probably, that I'm not getting my dreams, and I should probably not blame other people, and I should work on myself. And so, yeah, there's all sorts of things like this that we do. And so I suggest, like I said, befriend it. It sounds silly. think it, figure out what it's trying to do, and figure out a way that you can do that better. So yes, that's everything I want to say for today, I believe. Okay, bye.